there is a serious colluding story that is brewing right now regarding how is Trump going to help Andrew Cuomo. So, Colin, if you could please pull up that story. I think it's very important that people understand exactly why this is happening. When you think about I know you don't think it's going to matter, and maybe it won't. Maybe it's possible that it won't make any difference.
I don't think it will.
Donald Trump and Eric Adams' teams are reported to be conspiring in a bizarre, corrupt effort to elect Andrew Cuomo as mayor of New York City. And so what is the gist of this particular story? Well, it turns out that between current mayor Eric Adams and Republican candidate Curtis Silva, the Trump administration is making a move to basically give these two men jobs in his administration, and in return, they not only drop out of the mayoral race, they endorse Cuomo as well.
Right.
And their calculus is, will that be enough to push Cuomo over the top against Mamdani? You don't think so?
No.
I would probably be inclined to agree. But
it's just going to fall flat. It's not going to work. And I also think that anybody who's on the fence, let's say, well, I don't know how you could be, but anybody who is on the fence, sure, and they're watching that the supposed Democratic candidates are being supported by the Republican president, like, it's not a good look. And so I just think that makes it people more inclined to vote for the actual Democrat.
Yeah, but you know what, though? As much as I would normally agree with you under those circumstances, you have to remember that when push comes to shove, and I think New York City is a great example of this, it's all about class war. And for them, if you're talking about electing a mayor that might legitimately raise the taxes on the top 1% of the population in New York City, they're going to fight back. They just are.
But I don't think it's going to matter. The margin that he won by is too big for them to, and his momentum is too strong. I don't think it'll work.
I think you're right. I think it also, again, we have addressed this before, and I still think that this is maybe the biggest part of the story. There is such thing as being a sore loser in the minds of the average voter. It's one thing if you're getting behind one of the candidates who just happens to be in the general election. You're picking the candidate that lost the primary, now is playing the spoiler in the general election as an independent, and now you're throwing all your weight behind that guy. They're all going to be like, wait, we already voted against you. Why are you running again?
They're replaying Buffalo. They're replaying Buffalo, but the problem is Mamdani's too popular. And it's too public, and it's not going to work. And I just don't think it'll work. And Cuomo is so disliked.
He really is. And he's only making it worse. But I think ads like this are why they are so scared, but also why Zohran is very likely to win in just a couple of months.
Be honest with the American people about what's going on here. This is political theater.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Colin, you had that written as Zohran. You got to, that's written as Zohran ad. Keep that in mind. So I don't know why that came up as that, but that's for later. This is the one. I apologize. So Zohran went on with Charlemagne the God on The Breakfast Club, and the question of Israel was brought up. And here's what he had to say.
He said if you're elected mayor, Israel wouldn't let you in. And you mentioned some legislation, but would that legislation apply to you if you're actually mayor?
We've seen elected officials, even congresspeople of this country, not be allowed into the state of Israel. And my point was, I've been asked this question many times, and I've said directly that I believe one need not visit Israel to stand up for Jewish New Yorkers.
I mean, isn't
the majority of Jews in his districts or in the city support him?
Yeah. Frankly, there's probably a lot of them that do support him, but also support Israel. And they just think, well, you know what, maybe we need to take a step back because you have, again, your classic saying is pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Now, there are probably a lot of Jews in New York City that support the state of Israel, but they know that we may have reached a point of no return. And if we do not take a significant step backwards, we're going to lose the entire state altogether. We'll never be able to take our vacations overseas into Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Like those days will end. It's going to become
I don't
a
want to go
quarrel
there.
state. And if there's a place that could change the narrative in a significant way, I think New York obviously would be ground zero to do it. It's not going to happen in South Florida. Like, that's not happening there. And it's likely not happening in Los Angeles either. We just saw what happened with the school board in Beverly Hills. But I think this is a classic example of you have a real leader, a leader that could actually just become the de facto leader of an entire national party, because essentially that's what he would become. My opinion is Zohran is the de facto populist left leader of the Democratic Party should he win. Now, will he do anything with it? Still way too early to tell.
And what can he do? Like, what will he do without being obstructed?
Well, he's going to get obstructed. It's just a question of how many people he has at his back. Like, how much wind is at his back to actually get anything done. But if he does win, and especially if he wins by double digits, he's going to have a mandate to at least pass one of his major initiatives. My guess is if he had to pick one, it's probably going to be rent control, but we'll see what he ultimately ends up doing. Either way, he's going to try to help working people in the city. And it's going to be an interesting time to see if there's a sea change, because the big difference now versus yesteryear, it's a completely different world when you have social media and access to information at the tip of your fingers at all times. So we'll see.
What I need to do is to meet Jewish New Yorkers at their synagogues, at their temples, at their homes. Even if I was going to make that trip, there is legislation that does not allow anyone who supports a nonviolent movement calling for the compliance of the Israeli government with international law to be allowed into that state. And I say that to say that there has to be a greater recognition of what is going on. And the fact is, for me, my politics come back from a politics of the universal. I believe that freedom and justice and safety, liberty, these things have to apply to everyone for them to be meaningful. And that also includes Palestinians.
I don't care about Israel either. In fact, that's probably one of his most endearing qualities. Okay. First of all, I'm a real estate investor and a commercial realtor. But you can think whatever you want. I don't care. If anything, I'm a class trader because I care about the betterment of working people. I care about animals. I don't care about rich individuals who think that the object in life is to just accumulate as much wealth as possible and screw over everybody else in the process. In fact, I met with an investor the other day that, for those who know real estate terminology, basically said, well, if it's anything less than a 12 cap, I'm not interested. And then I just felt like telling him, well, listen, it was nice meeting you. We're never going to work together because we're never going to reach terms that are agreeable, because in your mind, the only person that matters is you.
We need to deal with this. Can you deal with that?
I don't know how you can come to that conclusion. If you wanted to say that Jews in the oligarchic class of society, like Jamie Dimon, like Mark Zuckerberg.
But it isn't that they're Jewish, it's that they're oligarchs.
Yes, which again is my point, is saying if you want to say them from the oligarchic class, yes. And as we have often stated, and will state again, despite what some of our bigoted friends on the podcast who come to the chat want us to believe, the fact of the matter is this is a class war, nothing more. So if you want to know who's really causing trouble and is making our lives more difficult, it is without question a class struggle. Now, do I think that there is a certain level of responsibility that I feel that the Jewish population has because of their stone silence on calling out those that do not represent them properly? Yes, I do. But you know what? In almost every culture, there is a certain code of silence that exists. Listen, there's a code of silence amongst police officers in this country.
This is starting to annoy me. Endless wars are not pushed by Jews. They're pushed by Zionists.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the difference between Judaism and Zionism, we've covered it a lot, but you really need to educate yourself, okay? Because I know plenty of people in Jewish community that are not that. And I know Christian Zionists that are that. So I don't think you understand what you're talking about. And I think that you are bigoted and should educate yourself.
I also think a lot of it comes from a place of anger and resentment because the system does not work for the average person. In fact, it works for a very small enclave of individuals. And I would agree if you're talking about it from a class perspective, that it's wrong. Yes, there are certain institutional advantages that exist in this country. And yes, they do exist if you're Jewish. And they also exist for other people in other high places. But as we said, if you treat this as anything other than the class war that it is, look at Keaton and Russell from Due Dissonance. Those are two working class Jews, and they share the same sentiments that Jen does about the state of Israel and about the state of the Jewish oligarchy in the United States. So stop projecting it as anything other than what it is.